Hey guys, what's going on? D1 here from D1Baney.com. I am super excited to have a close friend of mine, Eric, here. Eric is a pretty prolific producer and DJ, currently sitting in Mexico right now, and kind of talking on my prior video of getting back to music on this channel. I figured this would be a great start. Eric's actually mentored me a ton with growing my label and DJing. So maybe Eric, do you want to maybe just introduce yourself, brother, and kind of give people an idea of kind of what you've done in the last zillion years in the music industry?
Yeah, well, it's not quite a zillion, but it feels like it. My name's Eric Bingham. I've been, doing music since I was a kid. I mean, I started playing guitar when I was about 9 and played in bands in high school and things like that. Was always into electronic music and started DJing a very long time ago and kind of did it as a hobby for a long time. And then just a few years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, just said, you know what, it's something that I really love, I'm passionate about, and I want to make my kind of main thing that I do outside of work. And then lately it's been work, which has been great. And so I've been producing music, I've been DJing, kind of traveled all over the world doing that, and started my label just under a year ago. In August it'll be a year, so just under a year ago. Congrats. And it's been going really, really well. And yeah, trying to balance all those things at the same time between music, making music, performing music, making the label grow, and family and friends and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. And I mean, I know, Eric, you're not one to toot your own horn, but can you maybe just speak on the places you've played to give a bit of context?
Yeah, I mean, I've been really fortunate. I mean, a lot of it's been through people that I knew and getting to go to some amazing spots. I've played different places in the U.S., Beta nightclub in Denver, which was the top-rated club in North America for a while, at DJ Mag. Played at Ruby Sky in San Francisco, played multiple places in Miami during Winter Music Conference. Recently here in Mexico City, just this past weekend, I played with Matador at a big venue here in Mexico City, which was a blast. I've done for the last, 5 out of the last 6 years, gone to Ibiza in the summer for a week or 2 weeks, kind of depending on the trip, and played there. I've been fortunate enough to play at Space Ibiza for Carl Cox's night, Amnesia on the Terrace, which was one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my whole life, and some other smaller places there, some boat parties, things like that. So
awesome.
all over.
Awesome. And then let's just talk quickly about the label and kind of the success you've seen in terms of tracks making the way up on the charts.
Yeah, I mean, it's been way more successful than I kind of anticipated for the first year. It's I really wanted to start it as a way to put out my music that I like, and music of friends of mine, and people that I've met through DJing and travel and stuff. And it's done actually really well. Been really focused on trying to kind of strategically grow the label and make the right moves rather than go for the big things right off the bat. And we've been lucky enough. We've had one Traxsource Tech House #1, one Traxsource Techno #2, which I believe was your track. We've had a number of top 10s. We've been lucky enough we've had 13 releases so far, and out of those 13 releases, all 13 of them have charted in one way or another, whether it's Traxsource or Beatport or whatever. So it's been great, great start for sure.
It's been amazing, and I mean, on my end, I've got such a junior label myself, but I really have to say everything that Eric has touched so far has turned to gold. And I mean, you're 100% batting average with tracks charting, which is incredible in a noisy world. And I guess this kind of segues into really what the point of this video was today. And I just wanted to talk, just real talk, about the behind the scenes of what we're all struggling with, which is such a noisy marketplace, and the challenges of making money in the industry, and how do we stand out, and how do we stay true to our brands while still putting food on the table, Right. On my end, Eric, with the label, we're 13 or 14 releases in now. I think the 13th is coming up. you know, we've had quite a few charted, but nowhere at the level that you guys have. Can you maybe just speak to, you know, the average DJ or producer that's probably going to be listening in right now that, you know, has struggled with the same thing that we've struggled, where, you know, it's hard to get our music released elsewhere, so we decided to start our own label, you know, to have a little bit more control over it. What would you kind of give advice for on how to start standing out in the marketplace? Because there's a lot of noise right now, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think always everybody talks about now is different from how it used to be and stuff like that.
Sure.
I think there's always been a ton, and I think that now there's, you know, there's probably 100 times more people producing music today than there was 15 or 20 years ago. But
Sure.
there's also 100 times more ways to get your music out there. So it all kind of equals itself out. It's not like there's that many more people trying to break into that same small number of record contracts that there used to be, you know, decades ago, where that was the only way to get your music out there. In this day and age, you know, you can self-distribute your music and put it out 10 minutes after you finish a track. It doesn't have to go through one of the major conglomerate labels.
Absolutely, and I love that idea.
It's interesting. But the thing is, I think as far as standing out today, I think what it really comes down to, more than anything, from the very beginning of starting a label or starting a career in DJing or producing music or whatever, it comes down to kind of why you do it. I think the people that end up being the most successful in it are the ones who are doing it out of a passion, out of a creative outlet, because it's fun, because it interests them. And I think that the people that end up not doing well are the ones who are doing it because they want to make a ton of money right away. They want to get rich and famous. They want to have their names up in lights. Because, to be honest, that really never happens. I mean, it's like saying, you know, I play soccer because I want to play for Barcelona.
Right.
You know, a few people a year get to do that. And
Yeah,
it's
no
kind of
kidding.
the same in the music business. You know, you can't start out saying, I want to do this because I want to be one of the top 10 in the world. I mean, it's always great to have goals and stuff, but it's also good to keep those realistic and kind of be methodical about the way you do things. And there's a passion and a fun side of it, and then it's also a business. So it's important that you treat it as a business as well.
Right, and it's funny, like, I wasn't sure if you saw the video from yesterday, but basically I was kind of explaining why, you know, why I kind of took a backseat on the music for about a year, and it came down to exactly that, Eric. Like, you hit it right on the nail that, you know, I was in it for the money, not so much the fact that I was trying to get rich, but, you know, I'd left my job and figured, you know, I had to, you know, I had to take a go at it and start this record label and throw shows to make money. And it became a really dirty business very quickly in terms of mentally on my end. And you know, now that I've got my other things going on, I can restart focusing back on music for passion. I just feel so great, and that is absolutely the X factor that I think is the difference between something that's going to make it and not. Because the road is extra steep these days, you know. And
well, I mean, I think that the reality of the situation is, and you and I have had conversations about this in the past, is that in the music production, the music, you know, the sale of your own produced music, there's not any money to be made. I mean, there's this top 1/1000th of 1% that's actually making money doing stuff, and then there's a million other people out there. And so if you start off doing it with the idea that you're doing it to make money, you're going to get discouraged really fast, and you're just going to shut down. Where if you're doing it because you love to do it, because you're passionate about it, because it's fun, because it's how you want to spend your time, then it's a lot easier to actually sit down and write a track. Where it's a lot easier to deal with, you know, a lot of the crap that's out there. And when you're doing it because you have to make money to make ends meet, it makes it a lot less easy to deal with.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to discourage anybody that's kind of tuning in right now, but just kind of give you an idea of the numbers behind, like, what a label really makes and what an artist really makes on an average. And I mean, Eric, you don't have to comment on it. I can be open book on my end.
Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to. I had actually a really funny conversation with a guy who is a very close friend of mine who did a remix for one of the tracks that we released, and his remix ended up getting to, if I'm not wrong, I think he got to number 8 on the Track Source Deep House charts.
Okay.
It was a Deep House remix, and he started like getting stars in his eyes and dollar signs in his eyes, going, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" and number 8, and that's huge.
Sure.
And I said, "Okay, well, let's talk about this for a second. For a song to chart, for example, on TrackSource, we'll use that as an example, and then I can kind of compare it to Beatport as well.
Sure.
For a song to chart on TrackSource, you need to sell a certain number, and it's not a set number. It's based on all of the other tracks that are out there from that week.
Yeah, it's like a floating average almost.
Yeah, I mean, basically, a top 100 means it's the top 100 best-selling tracks of the last 48 hours is kind of what it means. And so for a track to get onto the charts, sometimes, you know, if sales are slow at a certain time of the week or a certain week of the year, sometimes it only takes 2 or 3 sales and you're in that top 100 on a thing like TrackSource.
Yeah.
And something like Beatport, it might take, you know, 15 or 20 to get on in a slow week. You know, where in a busy week, TrackSource might take 30 and Beatport might take 200. It just kind of depends on the week. But I mean, I know of tracks, this one, for example, you know, you take a track that gets, you know, into the top 10, stays in the top 10 for a couple days, and then slowly moves its way down the chart. And over the course of about 10 days, it's gone up the chart, maxed out, and gone down the chart.
Sure.
A track like that might sell, I don't know, somewhere between 50 and 100 sales. Depending on the week, and you know, it can be even less than that on some weeks too.
Yeah.
Then you take what the distribution channel, whether it's Beatport or TrackSource or iTunes or whatever, they take their cut right off the top. Then it goes to the distributor that you distribute through. They take their cut, and then it comes to the label. And once it gets to the label, there's about half left of what originally started out.
Even less than that, really, with some of these. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the gross amount that comes to a label, and then that amount gets usually cut in half, kind of depending on the percentages, but it's normally 50-50. Half of it stays with the label, and half of it goes to the author of the song. And if it was a remix, that half is then split in half again.
Yeah.
So a remixer can have a top 10 track and make $15, you know, $10, $15 total off of a top 10 track. And so it's not the money out there that people are talking about. I just recently saw a video. I don't know if you saw this one. It was from a conference in the Netherlands that Laidback Luke did.
Okay.
And he was talking about DJing and real DJing and his life and stuff. And they brought up a scandal that his label had recently, where you know, some labels out there are saying, "Show us your receipt for the track you buy, and we'll, you know, send you a T-shirt. Show us your receipt, and we'll do this to kind of help boost sales." And his label did a thing where it said, "Okay, show us your receipt, and we'll reimburse the cost of the track."
Right.
To try and get people to buy more tracks.
Right.
And this was a track that didn't make it to #1 in Beatport, but I think he said they sold 1,100 copies of the track worldwide. And it didn't make it to #1, but it made it like to the top 10 or top 5 or whatever. And so you think somebody like Laidback Luke, in a very commercial music setting, very well known, top 100 DJs, plays all over the world, makes tens of thousands of dollars for shows. He's putting out a hit that's making it to the top 10, and they're selling 1,000 tracks.
Yeah.
So you divide that by outlet, record label, things like that, and by the time it gets to him, he probably made $300. Yeah. $400 at the most of the track like that, and this is the top of the top of the top.
Top of the top. I'm curious, what was the resolution there? Like, did he get like a slap by Beatport, or is it?
Yeah, they pulled the track down.
So it is illegal to bribe people.
Well, it's funny. What they basically said to him was, it's illegal to give money, which they were doing. They were reimbursing money, but it's not illegal to give stuff. So basically what they were saying is, okay, like, I guess, I don't know who it was, some other big top 40 or top commercial progressive guy was doing, show us your receipt and you'll be entered into a drawing for a helicopter ride, you know, to do something. So they could give away a thing to incite people to buy.
Right.
And then that was okay, but reimbursing the cost of the track wasn't okay. So.
I love the way this conversation's going, because let's talk about my track for a second here. So for those of you, I don't even know if I've got it on my channel, but I released a track with Eric about a month and a half ago. Is that about right?
Yeah. Kicking and Screaming, you released a track.
Yeah. Eric had a gun to my head and said, come over. No, besides the point, it was really Kicking and Screaming. And I'll be the first person to say my production chops are nowhere near where they should be, because, like I've said, I've just not focused on it. But that's, again, besides the point. So Eric released a track, and all I ended up doing really is I've got an email list of people actually in the Kindle community and business community, and I just reached out to them with a personal relationship. And we're going to touch on what you said at the beginning of the call about people we know,
Hmm.
but we'll get to that after. And literally all I did was I mailed out to these people and said, hey, if you guys buy my track, I'll give you some value in return. It ended up being a coaching session, and I really just wanted to help people. Uh, that initial push, I think, got me into like 30 or 40 on the track source, and by a week and a half in, I was number 2 or number 3.
Hmm.
So it really goes to show that, yeah, I mean, even with these big guys, they're all focusing on what relationship is there outwards instead of focusing on Beatport pushing their track for them, right? Um,
Right.
and I wanted to maybe just talk about building lists quickly and what I feel. I mean, I might be wrong, I might be right. Well, we'll find out in 2 years to see if I've made it, quote unquote. But I'm just a firm believer of this 1,000 true fans concept, where you don't have to reach a million zillion people. If you just get 1,000 people that are really into you, um, I'm thinking like Dub Effects or guys like that they've got their own Bandcamp set up and all the money's coming straight into them. But just really owning the relationship with 1,000 people, and maybe you put out an EP a year, and just like we're doing now, we're building relationship. There's gonna be people that are gonna end up following you, Eric. There'll be people that end up following me. Capture their email, build a relationship, and once a year ask those people, hey, can you spare $3 to help me get onto the chart? Uh, Imagine if those 1,000 people bought, you'd have similar results to quote unquote laid back Luke. I mean, I am talking a bit rosy-eyed here, but the mentality, I think, is something that a lot of people in the music industry are missing, especially DJs and producers at the low level. I mean, I know these big labels have monster mailing lists, but guys like me and you that are, for the most part, independent, if you're not owning the relationship with the people that are buying your tracks, you're kind of missing out in the future, right? Then it just becomes kind of a luck factor more than anything.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's kind of interesting. I think you and I have had conversations about this before as well, about how the music industry has changed so much over the last, whatever, 10 years, I would say, even, where the model used to be that you would, like a rock band would tour to support an album. They would go out and basically live in a van and make almost nothing and drive around the country to get people to buy their record, and that's how they made money.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, that's completely flipped the opposite. There's virtually zero money to be made now, just because of the way music has gotten, and MP3 sharing and file sharing and things like that, and how inexpensive it is and how readily available it is. So there's very little money to be made in the actual production and sale of music, but where the money now is to be made, it's in the actual touring part of it.
Yeah.
So you can put out a track that gets you to a certain level on a chart, which gets you enough recognition that you get some bookings to play live. Well, all of a sudden, that track may have made you 10 or 12 bucks, but it may have gotten you, a couple $1,000s worth of bookings. So all of a sudden, it's a couple $1,000 track. And so it's not the direct sale of the music. And what that really comes from, like you said, is the relationship. If those people only know the song, they don't know the person behind the song, and they only like the song and they don't like the person behind the song or want to have something to do with them, they're not going to come to your show.
That's it.
It becomes kind of around building a brand of a label or an artist or a sound or things like that people attach to, and then they become a true fan, where it's, I guess in the past it was, well, it still is today with more, pop music, where people are fans of the people, where they're, groupies or followers of the people. But as far as fans of the music that we produce, it's more people that want to hear that style and be exposed to something new and different. And so if they trust that you're going to do that, they're going to follow you, and they're going to, listen to what you have to say.
It's so true. I mean, the people that seem to be blowing up right now, and I hate to use this word, but it's quote unquote celebrity, and celebrity is really selling music now, where it's Steve Aoki and the Diplos and the Skrillexes and the Deadmau5s, they're like a lifestyle brand now. They mean even more than their music, and I guess fortunately or unfortunately, whatever way you want to look at it, marketing is almost 75% of the battle now.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it always has been. I think what's different now is that 10 years ago, you would never have an electronic dance music artist as a pop star.
Right.
10 years ago, it was an R&B singer, and 10 years before that, it was a an alt rock singer or whatever, and they were the celebrities and they were the stars. But I think that there was, you can go back decades, and I think there was just as much around marketing a brand of the Monkees in the 60s. It was way more about their brand and their image and their TV show than it was about their music.
Right.
And whether or not the music was good or bad, that wasn't the point. The point was they were a brand. And, they take that all the way right through. The Rolling Stones are a brand, and Pearl Jam is a brand, and you can go through all the decades of music right up until today. And the electronic stuff that I was always into, Depeche Mode is a brand, and Kraftwerk, look at them coming back as a brand. They've been a brand for 30 years. Daft Punk. I mean, this isn't anything new. The only thing that's new is that people have decided, and I think with a lot of guidance from big record labels and the radio and Clear Channel and things like that, people have decided that electronic dance music is the new pop music.
Right.
And so that's why you see so much crossover. I mean, go back to when David Guetta a few years ago decided that it was pretty cool to take hip hop and R&B artists and pop singers and put them with his music. All of a sudden, the people that listened to that thought house music was weird techno from Europe, all of a sudden they go, wow, this isn't so weird, and then it brought it into their fold, and then it's just blown up, and it kind of paved the way for the Calvin Harrises and the big commercial guys
and everything else.
Smart people like Stevie Aoki and others, they've said, okay, well, I'm going to carve out my niche in this huge wave of money that's happening right now by being my own brand.
Right.
And they do. And I just think that that's like it always has been. I just think the only difference is now they've got decks in front of them instead of a guitar in their hand, but it's still that same celebrity that it always was, and that same marketing that it always was.
So to bring it back to more actionable people listening here, what can people do to I guess getting back to the question of how can they stand out? Like, let's say you were to sign a brand new artist tomorrow. Mm-hmm. What would you be looking for, and what would be the advice you'd be giving them? Let's just assume they're all in and they're passionate. All those ducks are in a row. Their technique is quite good. They're continuously improving. All that's great. They're great guys or girls. What's the advice in terms of actionable? What would you be telling them to be doing to continue, feeding the machine and building their, the end goal of them touring?
I mean, I would say more than anything else, don't let up. When you have a little bit of success, don't say, okay, that's cool, I can kind of rest on my laurels. Now I've done it, I've made it, I don't need to do anything more. Because there's with as readily available as production software is today, and as inexpensive as it is to get into DJing and production these days, there's just that many more people out there, and there's a lot of people that are really good with computers, that are really good with music, and they can put that together and they can become a really good producer in a relatively short amount of time, or a good DJ in a relatively short amount of time. So what's differentiating today, the people who are actually making it from the people who aren't, are the people who are actually working at it. And the people who don't just go, oh, I did it, I can kind of take off and I can coast now. And that happens a lot. I mean, I'm sure you've seen this with your label as well. When you sign an artist and it comes time to release their album, and they just kind of sit back and wait for the money to roll in, and they don't actually get out there and promote their own track. They're not, contacting their mailing list or posting on their social media, or, putting their mix into or putting their song into a mix that they do for a radio show, or doing a chart, a top 10 for Beatport or a top 10 for TrackSource in order to get some publicity out there. And they expect that it's just going to happen because they signed a track. It's like, oh, I signed a track now. I'm good. I'm a star now. Yeah. And that's one of the things that's toughest for me. The tracks that are the most successful, frankly, are the ones who follow up the good track with the action. And that was exactly what you did. As soon as your track came out on a compilation with 10 tracks. Yeah. And it came out on a compilation with 10 tracks with some really well-known artists. And yours was the one that charted the highest. Not because you were more well-known than they were, but because the day your track came out, you went right to work and said, I'm going to make this track make something. Yeah. And they had other stuff going on, or they weren't into it, or they wanted to work on another project, or they had another track come out that same day. So it's harder to see. You jumped right on it. I mean, we had the track that we had that was #1 on in Tech House. The guy who did that track, it's exactly the same way. It's a guy named Electric Cat. from Jersey in the Channel Islands.
Sure.
And he's the same way. The day his track comes out, he is all over the place promoting his work. And everything that he has that comes out does well because he works it. He gets out there and he really pushes and promotes his work.
Well, it's great, and it's you know, for those of you that are still listening in on kind of the train of thought here, the underlying message is you don't have to be well known, and you can still do it with a little bit of hustle and a little bit of work. I love the idea of relevance, and like you said, you've got to follow up on things. I'm number one, you know, biggest failure or my biggest issue right now was exactly that, because I was been so hot and cold for the last couple of years, right? I put a track out or I put a mix out, and then it would just be out there for 6 months, and then what? And then that relationship, like, you've got to be kind of top of mind for people. So I'm not saying you've got to go release 100 million tracks a year, but I completely agree. I would almost say the follow-up is almost more important than that initial push through, right?
Yeah, for sure from a label standpoint. I think from an artist standpoint, where I would say it's only slightly different is from an artist standpoint, it's really more about tying things together and saying, you know, okay, I have this, and you know, you had a track that made it to number 2 or number 3, and now use that. You know, while it's number 2 or number 3, remind people, get out there on social media, let them know, you know, take screenshots of it so that you can post it on social media and things like that. And then, you know, next year when you do a Throwback Thursday photo, repost that thing and said, hey, here's back to when I had this song that went, you know, all the way up to the top 5, and what a cool thing, and I'm so excited. So you're kind of reminding people and tying it together. It's one of the things that I find from the performance DJ side of things that gets really frustrating, and I wish that more people would kind of listen in on what we're talking about. Sure. Is promoters in this day and age, they'll book somebody, and unless you're a huge star, they don't want to book you, because that means actual work and getting people to come in and see you. And when you're a big star, they just have to put your name on a flyer and people are showing up. Yeah. Where the whole idea of a promoter has been in the past to promote. And what we can do as artists is we can give them tools to promote us with. You know, when somebody wants to book me, I'm not a big star, so I need, you know, that promoter needs some tools to get some people in the door. So what I'll do is I'll say, make sure when you put out the information in the Facebook event and create the flyer, make sure that you put that I played here, or this is my current track, or put a link to my profile on Beatport, or so they can see what I've done, so they can listen to my music, and it ties together all those little pieces and parts, and it gives them something to promote more than just your name, because you don't have a name yet. That's right. That's the thing. Once you have a name, that's a lot easier, and everybody's buzzing about you anyway.
Right. So to kind of summarize, I guess, as ammunition for a promoter, I guess a basic press kit would be great. Mm-hmm. So they've got a bit of ammunition to, you know, to throw up on the flyer, and like you said, to build out their page.
Yeah. And keep it updated.
Yeah, and keep it updated. No kidding. You know, my background now on the digital marketing side, I'm just seeing a lot of disconnects and failure on this standpoint. Again, I don't want to keep it super businessy, but I mean, it is what it is, and I am who I am. So, I mean, this is what I'll talk about. But I'm just seeing a huge disconnect between people's brands and their message, and they feel like they can just throw a track up there, and the world is going to bend for them, you know, and that it just doesn't work. Like you said, Eric, you've got to make it so easy for the world to know what you're about, and you know, unfortunately, if you're not comfortable promoting yourself, either hire a manager that can do it for you, or you're going to have to suck it up, because nobody's going to go scraping down your rabbit hole looking for SoundCloud links from 3 years ago to promote to their party. Like, you're just not going to get booked. It's bottom line.
Even less fans, potential fans. You know, like you said, what do you do to get noticed? They're not going to find you if you're not linking things together and giving them something to follow.
So I would say to kind of top level it, absolutely a press kit. You know, your Facebook page is great, but you need to have something that, it's like your resume, right, when you're getting a gig, or even to send out to blogs or whatever else, your press kit. Consistency of content coming out from you. You know, if you're not top of mind of people, you're going to kind of fade away, especially if you haven't made it. And then we said the keep hustling factor, that, you know, it is an uphill battle, and the guys that have the passion are the ones that are going to continue walking up that ladder rung by rung. It's it's not going to be an overnight success.
Yeah.
Even guys like Avicii that seem like they've come out of nowhere. It's just funny. Like I remember hearing his tracks before he was even a big producer, and people think that he popped up out of nowhere. Well, actually, he's got a huge marketing team behind him that pushed him up there. It wasn't just like it fell on his lap,
Well, and it's funny you say that because you were just saying something before, and I wanted to remember to talk about it, and that just tied it right into it.
Love it.
We had a long conversation about managers the other day.
Yeah.
And we actually used Avicii's manager as an example. That if you have somebody out there who's working the business side of things for you, that's great. Or you need to be doing it yourself. But it doesn't just happen. People don't get to his level just by, no matter what the trailer for that new movie that's coming out says, you don't just need one track.
I don't even want to talk about that on this call.
Well, but I think it's important because I think that if we're trying to get message through this video out to people, that movie's going to get message out to a lot of people too. And I want to make sure that people are keeping it realistic. You don't get in this day and age that big break, that one track, and all of a sudden everybody knows who you are.
Yeah.
You can write the best track that would be the biggest #1 hit ever, but if you don't market it, no one will ever hear it. They won't even know you ever made it. It will sit on your laptop in your bedroom, and that's it. And it'll never get out there. So you have to market it. You have to promote it. You have to get it to the right people. And it used to be that was the record executive. They were the one that you were always trying to get them a demo tape. But that's not how it is anymore. Now there's millions of labels out there. Get it out there, but don't just get it to a label and then expect it's going to take off because it's good. It has to be promoted by you or somebody else. And that comes down to the manager thing. As much as there's no money to make in producing music and selling music, where there is a huge opportunity in this day and age, I believe, in this business, is in quality management. And I think that there are so few quality managers out there that if somebody wants to break into the music business and wants to make a career of the music business, I would steer them towards that. I would say, you know what, if you want to fill a need, there's a huge need for people who are willing to do marketing and promotion and sales and make tons of phone calls and cold calling places for gigs and promoting music out and working on licensing agreements and doing things like that. There's a huge need for that out there. And in this day and age, it's basically like, oh, well, I'm trying to be a DJ and I know a few people, so I'm going to manage a few people. Yeah. And it doesn't really work out that way because you're kind of splitting your time and your effort. But if you're a marketing executive or a marketing genius, or you just come out of school and you know a lot about marketing, get into marketing people. Find somebody who you think has talent, who deserves to be heard, and manage them. Pick them up and say, look, I'll sell you to other people. I know your brand. I'll help you create that brand, and then we'll get that brand out there. And that's what happened with Avicii. You and I both talked about that the other day.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is, talking about that side of things, both of us sitting on the label standpoint, there are actually so many amazing musicians, producers, whatever, that are just sitting there waiting for somebody to scoop them up and promote them. So there is no scarcity in the marketplace of amazing people that you can manage. I mean, I'm gonna plug Eric here. I know Eric would love to bring on a manager on the on the clandestine community there. I'd love a manager, but there is such a shortage of people, and unfortunately that leaves guys like us to have to play both the art side and the business side, and it could be tiring at times. But don't kid yourself. All of these huge artists are just focusing on their art. Yeah, they've got input on how the brand goes, but they've got a business manager on the back end that's exactly cold calling these clubs in Vegas for for residency or whatever. I love where this went because this goes to, I think, the biggest question that I really wanted to talk about. And it's all about who you know. And I think most people, and even me, like I still struggle with it because I'm not out every weekend, partying with the community. But this is as much a who you know business as is your music. And Eric, you're a super well connected guy. Can you maybe just speak about it a bit and what that really means in terms of your career?
Yeah, no, I couldn't possibly agree with you more. a lot of times people get confused with the idea of who you know means if you're lucky enough to have an inside connection, you've all of a sudden made it. And the reality of the who you know is networking. And it's about getting to know people. I mean, you know, you and I have become friends and have never met face to face.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't have released on your label. You wouldn't have released on my label if it wasn't through networking through our mutual friend, Matt Brown. And
Yep.
had we not met through him and, you know, kind of grown our network in that organic way that you network, you know, we would have never met. You know, you would have had one less track out. I would have had one less track out, and you know, it would have been one less thing that we had to go with our brand. I can't put enough emphasis on the importance of networking. No place in the world is that more evident than in Miami for the Winter Music Conference.
Right.
It's so funny because I go every year, and so do a lot of people. And I think a lot of people look forward to it every year as their kind of adult spring break, and they just want to go down there and just rage and party, which is great too. I mean, there's tons of great parties and events, amazing music. Everybody in the world of dance music is in one city for 1 week, and so anybody you want to see, you can see them on consecutive nights or even on the same night. But when I go down there, for me, it's all about the business side of it. I mean, this year I did 9 shows in 6 days down there, trying to be at different events and get the word out there and be, you know, kind of promoting myself and my brand and my label. And the events that I wasn't playing at, I was going to with friends and meeting people.
Right.
And it was all about going and hanging out and meeting people. And, you know, I got to meet some amazing people this year. And, you know, those are the connections that you use to do business for this whole year. And I don't want it to sound like you use them. And that's,
no, not at all.
They're gonna take advantage of the connection that they have with you in a positive way, just like you are too. And that's how, you know, that's how I know the people that I know, and that's how they know me. And I get asked to be on certain labels, and I ask people to be on mine, and they accept.
And more importantly, it also opens the doors for events. Like, I mean, Eric is really downplaying this, but I mean, he threw an event at WMC. This wasn't just him showing up and landing in a plane. Like, he threw a solid event there. You've also been involved in quite a few events right across the country. What he glossed over is the fact that he was heavily involved in a nightclub as well, and his network just continues to grow and grow and grow. And I mean, to say that you played Space already is a huge achievement. But and again, I'm not downplaying your music, but it came down to the network that you had built that gave you the opportunity.
I was just gonna say that I'll tell the exact story of how I ended up getting to play Space and then returning back there. I through a friend that I had had for probably 10 years that was a DJ, but also outside of the music business. We met a mutual friend of ours who you know as well, Jimmy Bell.
Yep.
And by meeting Jimmy, he came and played at the club that I was running, and we got to be really good friends. Came and stayed at my house. I went and played with him other places. He came and played with me a number of places, and through him, I met a guy who was involved with a big boat party brand in Ibiza. And basically what these boat parties do is the people who are in Ibiza on vacation spend one ticket fee. They get on the boat, they go out for a sunset cruise with DJs on the boat, and then when they come back in, that same company buses them to one of the big clubs, and their ticket from the boat party includes entrance into the club. Right. And then the DJs who are the residents and the guest DJs for the boat party company are also playing one of the rooms in the club where they go to for that night because they've worked out their own agreements. So through Jimmy, I met a guy who ran one of those, actually the biggest one of those companies in Ibiza. Sure. And he's a DJ as well. He came and played, we got to know each other that way. And he said, hey, why don't you come and play our boat party this summer, and you can play at Space that night. I was like, wow, that'd be awesome. Yeah. So I went out there, and I was there for 2 weeks. Ended up playing Space 3 nights in 2 weeks, playing in different rooms. They had a special where they had 2 nights of the week that were nights that they worked with, and one of them happened to be the Carl Cox party. Right. And so, to be able to get my name on a flyer that was with Nicole Mudaber and D-Tron and Nick Fanciulli and John Digweed and Carl Cox, all of those guys playing in the same club with me on that same night, Granted, I was in a different room than they were.
Doesn't
But,
matter though.
you know,
Yeah.
all of those guys playing in the same club and being on that flyer, all of that came down to not me just knowing somebody, but meeting people and building a relationship and getting introduced to their friends and building relationships and getting introduced to their friends. And it got, you know, my friend from England who was running the boat party thing got to come to Colorado and DJ in a huge nightclub there that I was running. And then I got to go to his business and DJ in the #1 nightclub in the world.
Right.
And what was cool about it is that after that, we ended up building a relationship, and I went back and DJ'd for them for 4 years in a row. And they moved their night on one of the nights from the Carl Cox night at Space to a night at Amnesia in Ibiza.
Right.
And so through them, I got to also play at Amnesia, and I got to play the Amnesia Terrace where Marco Carolla plays, you know, and to be in that same booth, and I got to play for a sold-out crowd for, you know, 5,000 people, and it was amazing. And it was all because of meeting people and developing relationships and building relationships through networking.
Awesome, and I love it, and it, you know what, it applies in business as well too. And it's just a nice kind of dovetail in the whole conversation. Is, you know what, your music is one thing, but it's the network you build around you, and quite honestly, there's a lot of assholes in the community, and I'm not going to filter this, and there's a lot of shady people and negative energy around the club industry. But if you're just a solid, nice person that's honestly there about music, and instead of this take mentality that you see a lot of promoters or a lot of DJs are kind of in, if you just stand out and genuinely want to help people, just like you said, hey, do you want to release on my label, and just help people, your music is going to really get that chance, and people are going to love you for it. And I mean, I won't even say I'm living proof of it, but already, like, with such a slow body of work, I'm seeing such incredible results already, and I know it's just going to continue. So, you know, at the beginning of the call, we were a bit discouraging on, hey, there's no money, and the sky is falling, and yada yada. But like, we're really at a good positive point where anybody that has a good work ethic, that's willing to go out and just share their music because they love it, and connect with other like-minded people in the industry, and really just be positive about it. I mean, you could be playing Amnesia, or you could be playing Space quicker than you know it if you just put 2 and 2 together and meet the right people within the industry. I would strongly suggest building a community of people around you. You can't do this alone, and that was a immature decision on my part when I started my career, where I thought I was going to be a one-man army and take over the world. And the more and more I get, you know, down this rabbit hole, I realize that, you know, it might be a community of 50 or 100 people that end up elevating each other to a higher level.
Well, there's a great example of that in Denver, Colorado, where I'm from. There is a group, and they're actually called The 100, is what they named their group.
Cool.
And what they did was, this was a group of people that really wanted to bring quality underground house music to the Denver scene. Denver has a number of great clubs, but they were getting the kind of extremes. They were getting the real commercials side, and then they were getting the kind of unknown stuff, but they weren't bringing in the really quality underground stuff. And a friend of mine named Brendan Brierly, who his production name, DJ name is Option 4, he started a thing that's called The 100. And what's really interesting, it always kind of fascinated me. It's absolutely taken off. It's crazy. He created this kind of club, and he made 100 little necklaces, and they all have their own little necklace that they wear, and that gets them into every show. And basically what he did was, he said, if you're part of this community, you're committing that when we throw an event, you're going to come, because we're going to throw events geared towards you. And so you have a core of 100 people coming to your club or coming to your event. And basically that's blown up into an absolutely massive thing. And he was booking the little known kind of deep house underground, like the underground people. Sure. He was booking them at the start. And now if you look at his list of events that he has coming up, I mean, he's got DJ Sneak and the Martinez brothers, and like it's just one after the other of just massive artists in this kind of underground house scene. And it all started out as this group of 100 people, and they still all go to every single event. And basically, if you stop showing up to the events, they kind of revoke your necklace and they give it to somebody else who is showing up at every event. And they want that core of people to come to every event, and they do. And it was, I think, a genius idea, and I think it works for a promoter like him. in your own city, but it also works for an artist. You know, get a core of 100 people that will come to your shows when you play, or get a core of 100 people that will buy your release when it comes out, and you're going to have a string of number ones.
I love it, and it really just gets back to that 1,000 true fans model that I was talking. I love it. It just and the execution is just so simple and clean. It's nothing. I mean, the genius idea, but really, it's just find 100 people that like your stuff and build a relationship with them long term, and you're gonna be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I love it. Eric, we're getting pretty close to the hour here. I know you've got to take off. Where can people find you?
Wow, all over the place.
Yeah.
Obviously, Facebook, my artist page is Real Eric Bingham. You can find me on SoundCloud. Everything's listed under Eric Bingham, so if you search under those, SoundCloud, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, what else? I'm not nearly as social network savvy as you are.
Yeah, I'll have all the links below this video. And again, your label was called?
Clandestine Recordings.
And what type of music?
You know, the easiest way, if you want to follow Clandestine Recordings, is go to the sites where you buy. Go to Beatport, go to TrackSource, go to iTunes, and follow us. And you're going to see everything we've put out up to this point. You can listen to it all. We are definitely an underground leaning label. We are very much a techno-leaning label, but sure. As I've said since the beginning, and as I told you when you were working on writing a track for us, I said, I don't care what genre it is, honestly. If it has soul and if it has groove, I really don't care. I'll put it out. You know, if it's deep house, techno, house music, whatever, you tell me. If it strikes me as something that's soulful music, it gets put out.
Awesome. And closing up on my end, guys, I'm really starting to get pretty inspired about getting as many cool people on my channel as possible, and try to broaden it just outside of the business stuff. So I'd love for you guys to leave some comments below. Let me know what you thought about the interview. I'd love to have Eric back on the show. I've got a bunch of other people that I'll be kind of bringing on shortly. And as well, I haven't really told anybody this, but I'll be actually building a Facebook group shortly, which will be a community of artists, entrepreneurs, authors, thought leaders, just people that are passionate about life, and putting you guys all together in the same room so that you guys can talk about what it takes to build a brand and a passionate business and live a life of freedom, because there's a lot of noise out there where people are just looking into selling their soul for money, basically, is maybe the best term for it. And I've really struggled with finding a community of like-minded people. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're a painter, a DJ, I don't know. It doesn't matter what you do, really. You're ultimately, it comes down to you're an artist and you want to share your art with the world. And I think there's huge value in having a community of people that are all just passionate, trying to get their message out. So I haven't actually created the Facebook group yet. Again, it'll eventually be below this video. Sign up and let's all just enjoy being artists and sharing it with the world. So we're going to close up here. Again, thanks, Eric. I super appreciate it, brother. I know you're a busy guy, so I'm sure we'll have you on here again, though.
I look forward to it. Anytime you want.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Eric.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye.